Hey everybody, and welcome to the Bourbon and College podcast. I'm Austin. If you're wondering why I sound so much better, it's because I finally got an actual microphone in. So I'm going to be recording with that from now on. Let me know if you hear any difference. Today we're going to be reviewing the Knob Creek Small Batch 100 Proof Whiskey, which is a Jim Beam product. And I'm going to be talking about Mardi Gras a little bit today. On the day that this releases, it is actually Mardi Gras or Fat Tuesday. For those of you who don't know, I'm from Louisiana. I go to school in Louisiana, so Mardi Gras is a big deal. We actually get off at school for 2 days thanks to Mardi Gras. So I was in New Orleans this past weekend, went to a couple parades, drank a little bit of bourbon. But if you know anything about Mardi Gras culture, there's a lot more going on than sitting down sipping bourbon. I actually had a daiquiri made with Kentucky Dale bourbon. It was good. It was sweet. It was enjoyable during the parade. I did get to enjoy some Elijah Craig small batch while I was there, visiting some family. But other than that, there wasn't much bourbon sipping going on. I posted a little bit on Instagram. And I also wasn't very active with Instagram recently. But before we get too far into anything, I want to talk about some exciting updates. Well, as I already said, I got a new mic, so audio quality should be going up. The podcast has been relaunched on most major podcast networks now, so hopefully you can find it somewhere. If you can't, let me know. I'll try to add it to a different place. We had some issues, so I had to take it down from most places and repost it with a new hosting site, but I'll spare you the details on that one. Also, I got set up a Patreon account, so I'll explain a little bit of that. You'll hear about it in the outro and probably every episode. But basically, it's going to be 3 tiers. The first tier is only $1 a month, and that gets you access to the Patreon exclusive podcast feed where I'll be posting special episodes, hopefully at least once a week, maybe more. I'll do some things like some flight fights or some weird tastings, weird discussions that I don't really think would fit into the normal everyday podcast. The next tier would be $5 a month, and that gives you everything that the $1 a month gets, but also a custom 3D printed coaster that has the logo on it. I designed it myself and 3D printed it myself. I built a 3D printer. That all comes from me. They'll be very limited. Those I'm going to also possibly sell on eBay from the site, but it won't have a patron exclusive numbering and signature at the bottom, and it'll be more expensive than what you'd be paying for $5 a month on Patreon. The final tier is going to be $20 a month, but that gets you the coaster, the exclusive feed, but you also get to be on the podcast. You get to discuss with me about either a bourbon that you want. We can discuss a topic that you find interesting. If you have a bourbon related Instagram or something like that, we can talk about what got you into that, talk about your story. It's really up to you. Okay, enough of the boring stuff. Let's get into some whiskey. So before we try this Knob Creek, I'm going to give you the bottle details. So Knob Creek is a Jim Beam product. It is a Kentucky straight bourbon, and it is non-age stated, which means it has to be aged for a minimum of 4 years. Straight bourbon can be aged for as low as 2 years, but if it's below 4 years, it must be age stated. This one is not, so it's a minimum of 4. Now, it originally was 9 years, so you assume it's pretty close to that still. It is 50% alcohol by volume, thus the 100 proof in the name. It is 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% barley. Now, the bottle is really cool. It almost looks like your classic hip flask, like somebody would carry it around in Prohibition. The label is looks like old newspaper, kind of wrapped a little wonky. It's very, very neat bottle. It's a very common bourbon. I'm sure you've seen it. All right, let's get to the nose. First off, well, the color, it's a darker bourbon. It's not deep dark, but it's definitely a dark amber. What jumps out to me right off the bat is the classic nuttiness that you get with a bunch of Jim Beam products. It's now, if you know me, you know I love a nutty bourbon, and this is definitely in that category. But the nuttiness you get is very unique to Jim Beam. It's almost makes it too easy to point out a Jim Beam product. You get your classic caramel and vanilla notes as you would on any bourbon, and some oak, but the dominant note on the nose is definitely that nuttiness. Let's see what we get on the taste here. The very first thing I get on the taste is almost like a red starburst. Very interesting. I didn't expect that. You get the nuttiness as you would from any Jim Beam product, definitely. And the caramel and the vanilla hold strong. It's a classic bourbon. That starburst flavor kind of developed into an orange, like an orange candy, not like a citrusy orange. Maybe even orange peel a little bit, just the essence. It's interesting. I've had this bourbon before, but not many times. And I just thought of it as another bourbon. But it's definitely has a very unique flavor profile. I get the vanilla orange on the end. It's almost like those chocolate oranges that you smash. It's that kind of orange flavor with it. I wouldn't call it very chocolatey, but it's that orange that you get in the orange chocolate. That's interesting to me. Very unique, very good. And the 50% alcohol makes itself known. It's not super smooth. It's not going to rip your face off by any means, but it definitely lets you know it's there. Now, this is also the first alcohol I've had today, so that may be part of it. Usually I have a glass of some Buffalo Trace or something before I record. Not the case today, because I'll be recording a couple more episodes. So that could just be that I'm not used to the alcohol burn. Very good. The bottle's about half empty, so definitely use it. I use it in a couple old fashions. It makes a really good cocktail. I actually today went and bought a store pick of the single barrel, which I will be reviewing shortly. Also, I am planning on some uncorking videos I'll be posting on my YouTube channel. That bottle being one of them. But back to this Knob Creek here. It's a classic bourbon, but it definitely stands out against the crowd with that, like I said, that weird orange note. You get your classic caramel vanilla of any bourbon, but between the Jim Beam nuttiness and the orange candy flavor, it's definitely unique. It's definitely one that you want to have in a tasting of your quote unquote classic bourbons. You can point that difference out. I would, if I was talking with somebody new to bourbon, I'd set them up a blind flight of Knob Creek small batch, maybe the Elijah Craig small batch, definitely some Buffalo Trace, maybe even some Woodford, and let them pick out the subtle difference. See if somebody new can pick out those differences that, at least right now to me, seem very, very apparent. As for my rating on the Knob Creek, I would keep it at a keep for sure. It's relatively easy to get. It's only about $30, and it's common in most liquor stores. In Louisiana, we're lucky enough to not have to go to a liquor store to find our alcohol. We can go to any Walmart, Target, gas station, mom and pop shop. And Knob Creek's one of those, along with Buffalo Trace and Maker's Mark. They're one of those quote unquote better bourbons that you'll constantly see on almost any liquor shelf. It's delicious in cocktails, but it's also very delicious straight, which is why I'm keeping it at a keep and not at a cocktail. it's not high end by any means, but they have some really intriguing store picks out there for the Knob Creek single barrel that I am gonna try soon. I'm definitely a fan of this. It's like I said, I'm thinking about setting up a flight for some friends who are new into whiskey, and I'm kind of intrigued to see if they'll pick up on these little things. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. Happy Mardi Gras. If you're going out to any parades, be safe, be responsible, but have fun. Bring some bourbon along if you can. And if you're not from around Louisiana, go start your own Mardi Gras parade. Go be the crazy person parading in the street. Just don't go walking out with an open bottle of alcohol unless it's legal in your state like it is in Louisiana. Alright, guys, thanks. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Bourbon in College podcast. If you like the show, give it a 5-star review on your favorite podcast directory. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/bourbonincollege, where you can pledge as little as $1 a month and get access to our patron exclusive podcast feed where I do special episodes every week. If you pledge $5 a month, you will get a 3D printed custom Bourbon in College coaster and Glencairn top. And if you pledge $20 a month, you get to be interviewed on the podcast. Find me on Instagram at bourbon_n_college. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. Just search Bourbon in College. Go to bourbonincollege.com to see where you can find me. All the podcast channels are there. My YouTube channel's on there. All my social media. The Patreon page. So that's your one-stop shop for everything. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next time.